Hello, I'm Linda Hentschel and welcome to my interpersonal communications project. As you see, I have a PowerPoint presentation and I have numbered the slides on the lower left corner so that you'll be able to follow along with me. On slide number 2, you'll see that I plan to identify behavioral blend and also tell you my own personal behavioral blend. I want to also communicate how I have used my behavioral blend and my background to communicate with others in a positive and negative manner. Because of the negative communication I have experienced, I have set an overarching goal for myself to help enlarge my conversation. I have also developed an action plan so that I'm able to continue to enlarge my conversation long after my interpersonal communications class is finished. On slide number 3, you'll see that Carbonell defines behavioral blend as the use of characteristics seen in several personality types combined into a distinctive style of communication. Carbonell also designed the Uniquely You online assessment. Participants can go to this assessment and answer questions about situations. The answers to these questions then target that person to a specific behavioral blend. The behavioral blend that we'll be discussing throughout this presentation is the blend that will appear on graph 1, or that this is expected of me. This means that these are behaviors that someone would see in public settings, such as at work or at the grocery store. My particular graph 1 behavioral blend is a CI. If you're curious about what a CI is, please go to slide number 4 and you'll see a few of the characteristics of this behavioral trait. CIs tend to be influential and informative in their communication. We lead with our verbal skills and we avoid conflict. I have used all of these aspects in my communications with others, some positively, some negatively. On the positive side, you'll see on slide number 5 that I am a strong communicator. I believe this is because I am very secure in my identity. Through the readings of this course, I have learned that identity is a constellation of labels that establish social expectations that we have of ourselves and of others. Myself, I believe that my security comes because of the relationship I had with my family, a very stable and loving family, and also we were very grounded in Christ. I also learned that identities are not only formed from the constellations of our early childhood, but also in our relationships, both past and present. Because I have such supporting relationships with my husband and children, friends and church family, and most importantly with Christ, this is able to give me the security and confidence I need in my identity so that I can communicate very effectively. This has also established itself in my public self. As you'll see on slide number 6, it's as if I've had precursors to be a leader in the roles that I have at work. I'm an effective communicator, so that means that I have often developed and presented presentations. I have led our organization in an accreditation process by having trainings and letting our staff know where we are in this process. I am in a management position and I supervise 4 people. The struggle with this, however, is that I do not like conflict, just as my personality blend had said, and when dealing with employees, conflict will always arise. I particularly have difficulty when the conflict is around employee dissatisfaction or when I see behaviors that are defensive or they're behaviors that aren't very positive to the production of our department. When this happens, I fall into communication traps, and you'll see on slide number 7 that the trap I most often fall into is offering advice. I stop talking to others at a level 1 and begin talking to them at level 2 or 3, not even hardly listening to what they're saying to me, but coming up with the advice or the information I plan to say next. I'm in effect communicating to my employees that I'm okay and you are not okay, which then gives the response back to me of yes, but. I've learned that this is a drama triangle, complete with a persecutor who would be a situation or another employee in the organization, the victim, the employee I supervise, and the rescuer. That's me. The result of this conversation is usually that no resolution is found, and the employee and I usually both end up very frustrated. The reason why this particular style does not work is because the advice does not work. As you see on slide number 8, offering advice is making sure that the employee is hearing what I have to say from my perspective and not from the employee's perspective. I attempt to take the problem away from the employee, and I leave the employee feeling as if they are being accused of something or doing something wrong. I have learned that this is a going nowhere cycle, and it makes sense that the employee and myself would end up with no resolution and feeling very frustrated. Because of this, I've had to re-establish where I want to be with my employees and how I want to communicate with them. I have learned that I need to come up with a goal. On slide number 9, you'll see that the overarching goal I have to enlarge my conversation or to improve my relationship with the staff is to communicate at a more interpersonal level rather than at an impersonal level. To do this, I know I have to make some changes. On slide number 10, you'll see that the first change I need to make is I need to stop communicating to them in a supervisor's role and begin communicating as a person. I also need to utilize empathetic listening strategies, as well as making sure that I am not taking the problem from the employee and letting them hold their own problem. On slide number 11, you can see even more specifically how I plan to enlarge the conversation by talking person to person. This means that I have to be aware of my own self-maintenance techniques so that the employee is able to see me as a person. I need to be aware of when I'm trying to control the situation or use attribution to assess the situation, or even when I become frustrated and angry that I'm dealing with a situation that makes me uncomfortable. I also must understand that the employee is a person, and they will be bringing their own meaning and perspective to the situation. I can probably get more information about this by being more aware of the employee's nonverbal communication and also the meta messages they are giving. I can also ask appropriate questions to gain more information about the situation. On slide number 12, you can see that I plan to utilize empathetic listening techniques to refrain from judging the employee by asking appropriate questions such as who, what, how, and when. I also need to make sure I acknowledge the employee's feelings by repeating back to them what is being said, or even to use para-feelings to describe feelings I am hearing if the employee is unable to state them themselves. Last, I need to make sure that I am undertaking the employee's situation, that I'm acknowledging their feelings or letting the other happen while holding my own ground. This is a way that I can make sure that I am not taking the problem myself, but I'm allowing the employee to maintain control of that problem. On slide number 13, you'll see the action plan I have developed so that I am sure to achieve this goal. I first need to make sure I understand my role as the listener. I need to make sure that I can provide a safe place for the talker. I need to clarify the problem, and I need to understand what is being said. To do this, I also need to understand the change process so that I do not get discouraged and fall into my old habits. I do not believe I'm no longer at the resistance level, but I am somewhere between the being unsure and the assimilation. I'm a little uncomfortable with the techniques, feeling a bit phony, but they are becoming more comfortable. I look forward to being in transference when I can walk into a situation and know what I need to say or do, and finally the integration where I no longer have to think about these techniques, but they will come naturally to me. The reason why the techniques are so important to me and this overarching goal is so important to me is because I know that by enlarging my conversation with the employees, I will be achieving two very important things. On slide 14, you will see that what I have learned through this whole class, one of the things was through the research for this project, and that is that communication is the lifeblood of an organization. Without appropriate communication with the employees, I will not be able to be an effective leader. I also need to make sure that I am an effective ambassador of Christ and that I am communicating with my employees in a manner that God has designed for me. I need to remember the words of Hebrews 5:9. Do not threaten them, since you know that He is both the master and yours in heaven, and there is no favoritism in Him. By doing both of these goals, I will be able to communicate effectively and be an effective ambassador for Christ. Thank you.